Hey everyone, I just got wrapped up doing an awesome AMA interview with the fine folks over at Yacht Club Games about Mina the Hollower, game design, and all kinds of crazy questions. If you want to watch it right now, you can head over to the Patreon at patreon.com/thecompletionist. Watch it this instant or sometime soon in the future. Eventually will come to the public, but if you want to watch it right now, $5 on the Patreon. It's easy. It's easy time. It's fun. Promise.
The licensed game space has always been a bit tenuous. Early entries like Alien or Raiders of the Lost Ark for the Atari 2600 were either blatant ripoffs of other titles or so opaque your gameplay experience was more trial and error than actual play. But as technologies advanced, so did the quality of games. Companies that had more money could invest in this burgeoning video game space, which naturally caught the eye of Disney. And from the release of Tron in 1982 onward, Disney's been licensing their properties for games, resulting in some beloved classics like DuckTales, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, and all 3 Aladdin games. But somewhere around the mid-2000s, this reputation for Disney quality started to slip fairly dramatically when it came to games. While more creative titles like Kingdom Hearts and Disney Infinity managed to capture the hearts and imagination of many, games based solely on Disney and Pixar films weren't having that same lasting appeal. It seems that for every Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the rescue for the OG PlayStation, there would be a Monsters Inc. for the PS2, or a Wreck-It Ralph for the Nintendo 3DS that would somehow fail to translate. So, with such a gamble in mind, today we're going to take a look at one of those forgotten titles that by all accounts should translate into a good time. And that good time today is going to be The Incredibles for the Nintendo Gamecube.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. Now, I, like most people, love Pixar, and I especially love The Incredibles. The film tells a great story, has a whole family of superheroes, they all have different superpowers, and of course, the villain, Syndrome. I mean, all of these details should make a great, action-packed game with a ton of variety, right? Right?
Yes! All glory goes to the winner! Over. Wake up! Last one standing wins. K.O.
As already established, most licensed games are seen as little more than a shameless cash grab, so the barrier of quality is expectedly low. That said, in many ways, that sets games like the console-based Spider-Man 2 and Nintendo 64's GoldenEye to be perceived as more than just successes, but shining miracles. So what made these games really work? Well, it certainly wouldn't help if the source material and team dedicated to the project was stupendously strong, and The Incredibles game should work because it has that in spades. Not only did the game have animation powerhouse Pixar providing inspiration and some level of feedback, but the developer, Heavy Iron Studios, is known for their work on existing properties, including one of the most beloved licensed games of all time, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now, the Incredibles game sold incredibly well in its fiscal year of release, promptly resulting in the green lighting of a sequel to the Incredibles game, The Incredibles Rise of the Underminer, which was released just a year later. So just in case you don't know the plot of the film The Incredibles follows the Pars, a family of superheroes, as they try and deal with being a hero in a world where being a hero nowadays is illegal. The patriarch of the family, Bob, longs for the glory days when he was formerly known as Mr. Incredible, sneaking out at night fighting crimes with his old pal Frozone. Bob loses his job, but is approached with an opportunity to test out powerful weapons for a mysterious scientist. This turns out to be a trap, and it's up to Mr. Incredible and the rest of the family to escape the island they were captured into and save the world. What makes the story work so well is that while Mr. Incredible is the main character, the film is actually really about the whole family ensemble. Helen, formerly Elastigirl, is a strong leader and takes her new life in stride, putting all of her energy into her family. Their daughter Violet is shy and uses her invisibility to not be noticed by others. On the other hand of that spectrum is Dash, who wants to show off his super speed. What I'm saying is that Heavy Iron Studios had a great base to work off of, and you can see that when it comes to its presentation. The graphics on the Nintendo GameCube look not just good for its era, even if it looks better on Xbox or PS2. But Heavy Iron Studios captured the style of Pixar exceptionally well. Further raising the bar and marrying the game closer to its film counterpart, though, is the game's sound design. Not only did a lot of the cast from the movie reprise their roles, including Samuel L. Jackson as Frozone and Jason Lee as Syndrome, but the film's composer, Michael Giacchino, returned as well. Now, this is important because a major part of the film's identity is with the music. It's actually how I would imagine a golden era comic book would sound like, with its emphasis on brass instruments. Giacchino is responsible for all of your favorite musical moments in Pixar films, and his score really shines here. So, on paper, The Incredibles has all the components necessary for a huge win. Much of the creative team was backing the project, the developer had a very solid track record, and the story for the film was strong and engaging. But maybe it was that last item that would serve a movie well, but a game poorly. Part of what makes The Incredibles a great film is how it captures a relatable family dynamic with 4 very different characters in a fantastical situation. Each of them is interesting and makes for a compelling character, so when they learn to work together as a family, it is deeply satisfying. Unfortunately, The Incredibles game fails to capture this dynamic at just about every single turn. Because the game closely follows the film's narrative, the majority of the game is spent playing as Mr. Incredible. You platform through levels, beat up bad guys, grab some collectibles, and mash buttons to use his super strength. You know, like every other action platformer of this era. It's all very basic, but it does get the job done. The issue is that out of the 18 different levels, you play as Mr. Incredible in 11 of them. So this wouldn't be a problem if each of the levels felt unique, but they really don't. No matter where you are, you run around, beat up goons, and that's about it. You also play exclusively as Mr. Incredible for all of the major boss fights, and all 4 are woefully similar. Battles against Bon Voyage, the Omni Droid, and another Omni Droid all just have you dodging attacks until you chuck something at it with little variation. The ultimate Omni Droid at least adds a little more flair to its fight, as this battle has you fighting alongside Elastigirl, Dash, Violet, and Frozone to defeat the boss. This doesn't change the fact that you're battling yet another Omni Droid, where you play as Mr. Incredible and dodge attacks and throw something at it. We all know that fighting the same boss differently can be done effectively and feel elevated. Enemy behavior can be different. The stage can change. I have battled Boom Boom and Pom Pom as recurring characters across more titles in Mario games than I can count, but each encounter feels different to a degree. The Incredibles barely does anything to break the monotony of playing as Papa Incredible. Although you do get to play as the rest of the Incredibles family, it's not nearly enough. Elastigirl's supposed to feel different with her stretchiness and range, supposedly contributing to a different flavor of gameplay, but it is largely the same as playing as Mr. Incredible. Plus, you only play as her for 3 levels. So, that's 14 of the 18 levels that feel roughly the same. Then there's Dash, and his levels are surprisingly fun. Since Dash is all about speed, you are constantly running forward while dodging random obstacles in order to make it to the very end of the goal. Essentially, it's kind of a weird 3D Sonic level with just a little bit of a hint of Pepsi Man. What did I just say? They do suffer from being too fast at times. Objects appear around a corner and insta-kill you all the time. And these stages are not perfect, but both of these levels are a nice break from everything else. That's right, I did say both. There are only 2 of these levels. Finally, this brings us to Violet. Violet, oh, poor Violet. Since Violet can turn invisible, her only solo level is all about stealth. In theory, great. In execution, abysmal. Violet's invisibility is temporary and she dies in a single hit. If you mess up, you have to start from a checkpoint again and again and again. What's even more frustrating is that any other game that has stealth usually features multiple ways of getting around baddies, whether it's moving stealthily, hiding, or making distractions, like Sly Cooper or even Metal Gear Solid. Here, you have to avoid being seen, and that's it. There's no depth to it, just trial and error. All right, I'll admit I'm not the biggest stealth guy, but if you give me a system that works, I am more than happy to become the Dark Knight. And countless games have broken up their gameplay to great success. But if you include a single instance that you never plan to further iterate on, I am just left confused by the untapped potential or the inclusion at all. I know why it's there, you had to include Violet somehow, but this all feels super uninspired and slapped on to meet a quota, rather than driven by any level of passion. The flip side of the sentiment, however, comes from a level that combines Dash and Violet, with Dash running around in Violet's force field like Monkey Ball. Suddenly, the game was really fun again. Sure, it wasn't anything brilliant, but it required a lot of exploring, and it was nice to do something that felt unique from the rest of the game, especially since the remaining levels are just Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl. I understand that the game was trying to follow the movie beat for beat. There must have been other things they could have done. Scenes could have been added that don't detract from the plot, but add to the variety of the overall experience. In one of the earlier levels, we get a Dash level where he is running late for school and is dodging cars. Why couldn't we do something like that with Violet, where she's hiding from her crush like in the film? Heck, why couldn't we have fought Syndrome at some point at all? Even if this is a licensed game, you can take some liberties with the story. Just look at every Disney platformer on the Super Nintendo. There was, however, an attempt at some variety with a battle arena. In the battle arena, which is separate from the single player campaign, but still also a solo experience, I think, you can battle through 10 waves of enemies as either Mr. Incredible or Elastigirl, making for a total of 20 waves. Now, this might seem like a nice addition, but the glaring issue with this is that I just spent pretty much the whole game doing that. So this attempt at changing things up was to just put in more of the same. And it's only an extra hour of content at that. It's not variety, my friends. That's padding. Let me put it to you this way. Tetris is an incredible game with endless replayability because of the various different pieces and an infinite amount of combinations. But if you play the game with just the eyepiece, that long piece, then you're gonna get bored. And that's the Incredibles game in a nutshell. When your game is about a family called the Incredibles, it would make sense to play as every member of the Incredibles. But that's not quite what happens here. You get to play as Mr. Incredible with just a dash of Elastigirl, Violet, and, well, a little dash of Dash. But amongst all this tedium, there is actually a ray of light, because as you explore each level and gather all the collectibles, you actually get a reward for doing so. And you know what? For the first time in a long while, I actually like it. One of the better things about The Incredibles is how it constantly rewards you. There isn't a rating system for levels or multiple difficulties, but there are collectibles. In each level, you can find 3 Incredibles logos, making for a total of 54 logos in the game. For each one you gather, you unlock a piece of concept art for the game. Concept art is always cool, and these logos are fun to find. You also get rewarded for getting through each wave of the battle arena with more concept art. Once again, still pretty cool, but it starts to feel lackluster once that's the only reward for different accomplishments.
Overall, I'm left feeling pretty bleh. There are definitely some good ideas here in the game, but most of the time it doesn't feel like it has to be necessarily an Incredibles branded game, right? Except the levels where you play as Dash and you run around, it all feels like a mediocre action platforming game wearing the skins of the Incredibles. And then I realized that the perfect Incredibles game already exists out there. And that, my friends, is the Simpsons arcade game.
Now hear me out. Yes, there is a sequel to the Incredibles game that is decent, but the Simpsons arcade game essentially has all the pieces needed for an awesome Incredibles game. Swap out the Simpsons with the Incredibles, Mr. Burns with Syndrome, and Maggie with Jack Jack. That would work perfectly. Plus, it's a beat 'em up, which is the perfect genre for superheroes. Look, I'm not here to complain about what could have been. I'm looking at the game that's right in front of me right now, and while it is far from the worst thing I've ever played here on the show, it could be a lot better. It feels like Heavy Iron Studios had a lot of creative ideas to translate the film into a video game, but they found themselves restricted by what they could do because they chained themselves too directly to the film's plot. Why else would there only be 4 levels involving the kids? But what's left here isn't something incredible, it's just something kind of credible.
It's easy to look at every licensed video game out there and decry them as a garbage piece of crap that's just a quick cash grab that hurts the credibility of the industry overall, right? But I don't think that's the case here. Behind most, if not all of these licensed games, there are studios and people that really want to make a good product and hopefully elevate their careers in the industry. I mean, you can see this especially with Heavy Iron Studios' most popular licensed titles like Battle for Bikini Bottom and The Incredibles: Rise of the Underminer. The Incredibles for the Gamecube was fine. It felt repetitive with the similar looking levels and basic combat, but it looked good for the time and it can still be fun to play even if it's only about 5 hours long. Plus, there were some genuine highlights in the game, like the Incredible levels. Does The Incredibles live up to its own name? No. But is it anything really offensive? Definitely not. If you like The Incredibles, I say give it a shot and see how you feel. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of play it.
Play it!